Okay. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. If everyone can put themselves on mute. So tonight's topic, many of us got to go to Shannon Hudson's event. And even for those that didn't, we had an awesome time learning about Miss Gretchen Rubin's technique. So we're going to talk a little bit about that this evening. So that's a great test to take to see. Okay. To see which personality you are. And so we're going to talk a little bit about those personalities tonight. So that's going to be the topic.
It's a tendency. It's not a personality type.
Sorry.
Types are a little bit more all-encompassing.
Okay, sorry.
All right. So Dana's actually going to fill me in. I'm going to be facilitating tonight, guys, because I did not get a chance to go. So I'm going to be learning some stuff as well. I actually did take the quiz, so I do know what I am, but I have to do a little bit more research. So why don't we take a moment, though, and those who got an opportunity to take the quiz, just tell us what were your results and give us something very brief about what your results were in 30 seconds or less. Who's going first? You can unmute yourselves now.
I am a questioner, so when we get to that section, I'll go over in detail what that is.
Okay. So Tashina's a questioner. Dana and I both got obliger, right? And that was pretty interesting because I actually thought I was going to be something completely different based off of what Dana told me. I thought I was going to be an upholder. But what's the fourth one, Dana?
So then we have the rebel.
Okay. So we have the rebel. So you have questioner, obliger, rebel, and upholder?
Yep.
Were the four?
The four tendencies.
Tendencies that you could fall under?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
So why don't you walk us through a little bit of that, and then I was told that I guess others are going to be sharing a little bit more information about the results.
Yep, so I'll go ahead and get started on our personality. So we are the obligers. Obligers actually make the highest percentage of people. So an obliger, they meet outer expectations, but struggle to meet expectations they impose on themselves. So your obliger is that loyal friend. When you call them any time of day, they're there running to help. They get things done if accountable to others. They have a hard time saying no to others, but they don't keep promises to themselves. They keep their word and they come through. So this was really interesting to me because I actually think the first time I read Ula, Living a Balanced Life, if you guys haven't read that, that's an awesome book too.
Yeah.
I think that was the first time that some of this hit me with like a ton of rocks, because in Ula it talks about there was two things that I realized that I do, and one of them being that I don't keep integrity to myself, and then the other one, well, with that, I don't keep integrity to myself. I start things, but I don't finish them when it comes to myself. And that hit me hard. Like, even when you're thing, when they talk more about the obligers, Vanessa was looking in the audience and she's like, the obligers are all tearing up because, like, it's a harsh reality to think that, like, we would do anything for other people, but for ourselves, a lot of times, so much for other people, it's at the detriment of ourselves. So some of the things that, I appreciated about with this personality, it's so important to set boundaries. One thing that was mentioned is, so you need to, when you're dealing with yourself, think about how you would deal with someone else, right? So if you wouldn't go without eating, or if you wouldn't, push yourself to certain limits, another person to certain limits, you shouldn't do that to yourself, right? So another thing that was kind of eye-opening for me is we struggle with multi-level marketing companies. We are so concerned and so focused on trying to please everybody else that sometimes it can hurt ourselves and it can hurt our businesses. So it's so important to have that balance. You have to make sure, again, you're showing your appreciation for yourself as well. I know that's something that I try to work myself. Yeah.
Did they in that did they give suggestions on? I know you mentioned treating yourself like you would somebody else, but did they give suggestions on things that you could do, or is that in the book? You have to do more
I
reading.
can answer that because I'm almost all the way through the book.
Oh.
So the most important strategy to get a obliger in action is accountability. So if you think about which each of these, you're going to have your outer expectations and your inner expectations. So when it comes to the obliger, they meet outer expectations, but they have a hard time meeting inner expectations. So when it comes to goals, they are the most important person that needs that upline support, that accountability, that you go to them and say, hey, I'm counting on you to do this for the team. That's the strategy to get them to do what they need to do.
So strong support from upline leadership.
Yep. Accountability, outside accountability, whether it has to do with exercise, whether it has to do with business, whatever it has to do with, like they're the person that they could run every single day when they were on the track team, but then when they're 25 years old, they can't get up to run. They got to go out and get an accountability partner. And if they get an accountability partner, they can go out and run. So whatever it has to do with their goals, if you can make sure that there's an outer expectation, there's someone else that's counting on you to hit that goal, you'll hit it easier.
So in line with that, I will say that I know for me, and it was funny when I left Shannon's thing, like I had like this emotional breakdown, but like, because I was just thinking about every single factor in my life. So I ran track in high school, and I was the third leg in the relay. The third leg actually has to run the longest distance. And every relay, we always were like number one, but any of my individual sports, I was always 2 or 3. Like, so I'm just like across the board, like this is so true. Like I put so much more effort into my relay races because I had 3 other people relying on me.
That's interesting. Think about it. Tashina, I can't believe you're almost all the good majority through the book, but wow, that's interesting. So
yeah, I still got to get through the Rebel, but it's the audiobook. I mean, I literally went home and I downloaded the audiobook, and after I listened to my original songs which is what I do in the morning, I go into the audiobook, and that's all I've been doing in the car is listening to the audiobook.
Okay. Got you.
And the reason why is because I feel like I know the personalities inside and out, and I'm doing really good with the personalities as far as interacting. You know, I think I'm able to control my red, fake yellow. I think I'm doing fairly well with that. But I think I'm missing something as far as helping people motivate my team and motivate people. So like when they first talked about it, I was like, I'm super excited. I want to know, you know, what tendencies people have and what strategy to help them meet their goals.
Okay. That makes sense. And I feel like that's probably very, very, very important because I think, like you said, we've gotten to a certain extent where we can manage people's personalities and understand and identify through choice of words and actions what people's personality type is. But I feel like it's just as important to know their tendencies because, like you said, like as an obliger, we struggle in multi-level marketing because we need that support, that accountability from an outside source that says, hey, I need you to do A, B, and C by this date. Can you do that? And it's almost like giving them structure. So I feel like that's something that's probably very important because I know that's something that I struggle with. Even our children struggle with structure. And so that's something we've worked hard to give them. So that's a very good point, Tashina. While we have you still talking, so you came up as the questioner. Why don't you talk a little bit about that, and what are some of the things that one can do to overcome those hurdles?
Yep. So the questioner is the exact opposite of the obliger. The questioner is the one that always meets inner expectations, but has a hard time meeting outer expectations. So I am the person that, for an obliger, they're like, oh, my mom wants me to do this. My boss wants me to do this. People are counting on me. I can ignore all of that. And so the questioner questions everything. And in order to overcome that, you need to make sure that the questioner understands inside and out the reason and the why of something. If they understand the reason and the why behind something, then they can make it an internal expectation, and then they can move forward and do that. So the questioner is the second highest, I think, group perhaps. And the questioner tends to do fairly well in this business because they're the ones that really can ignore it when everyone else is telling them, calling them crazy. They ignore it because they don't care about outer expectations. But they're also the one that can be like, sometimes I think they're like one of the second most frustrating one because they're constantly asking questions. They don't drop things. Like other people will be like, move on from this. And they're like, but no, there's these open questions. So like a couple of stories that like explains how a questioner is, like I was able to go on stage and I shared this from stage. The first time that the whole group in my upline said, oh, we're going to do the game plan, I downloaded the book and I listened to it and I was like, I'm not doing that. It's a waste of time. There was no reason for me to do it. I know everything in this book, so why would I do it? And other people, like maybe an obliger that has respect for their upline, is like, yes, I'm going to do the game plan because this is important and we're going to do this as a team and yay. But as a questioner, I was like, I'm not going to do that. But then when I got to the chapter where it talks about this is supposed to be a duplicatable system and you're supposed to train two, I was like, oh, here's the reason why I need the game plan. Because everyone on my team doesn't read 2 to 4 or listen to 2 to 4 audiobooks. Everyone on my team doesn't know all of this in the book because they haven't read 45 books like I have. And so I need this because it is a duplicatable system and this will teach when I'm not there. And then the second time the game plan came around, I did it. So another example, upholder, my boss is an upholder. I tell him no all the time. I tell him no all the time. Unless he gives me a good reason to do something, like I will tell him no. And because he's an upholder though, he knows inner expectations and he knows a lot of times how to explain things to me. So I had a situation on Thursday where we're having trouble with one of our plants in Grand Rapids. They're not being engaged. They're not coming to the table. And so we set some meetings and we didn't accomplish much in those meetings because we didn't have the information that we needed. And then I was supposed to have a subject matter expert that was taken off of my project. So I had to do it alone when I was supposed to have help. So now the plant is a little bit upset. And then one of the other technical group managers was upset and was saying, we have this perception issue and we need to bring more value. So my boss comes and he tells me this and I'm like, I don't understand. And why do we care about the perception? It's not our fault. They're the ones not doing what they're supposed to. But then after I heard this, I was like, oh, he actually cares about outer expectations. That's why he's bothered by the perception when I'm not. And then later in the day, he had sent me, so all of this has happened before I've learned about these tendencies. Later in the day, he sends me an email. And in this email, he's like, well, every time we have a meeting, we need to have an agenda. And we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. And I read the email. I know he sent it at 5:30, but I didn't see it till 9:30. And I'm like, there's nothing in this email that fixes the problem. I always have an agenda. I do this. The problem is still open. So I call him at 9:30 at night. And he's like, is there something wrong? Because an upholder probably wouldn't call someone at 9:30 at night. That's like super late. Normal people wouldn't do that usually. And I'm like, no, but you sent me an email and it does not solve the problem. Because for a questioner, I literally can't go to bed with an open question. Like that's how we are. So I'm like, so there was one line in here where you said, you want us to get with some of the individuals that might know this information? Do you want me to call that person on Monday? Yes. Okay, now we have a solution. I'm fine. I can go to bed. And then I learned about the tendencies the next day, and I'm like, that was upholder versus questioner, and I know exactly what happened there. So that's just an example. That's how a questioner behaves. Like, we are the ones that are going to, like, we leave a relationship and we're like, but what happened? And we keep calling and we need to figure out why, and we ask the questions. And for researchers.
So I think you kind of hit on something, Tashina, because from my understanding, the little information that I have, even though you demonstrate a primary tendency, you can also lean towards certain other tendencies as well.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. I deal much better, without a doubt, with an upholder. So almost all of them, and when you read the book, she will say, if you are a questioner, but you lean to upholder, this is how you're going to interact, and this is how it's going to happen. If you're a questioner, but you lean towards rebel, this is how it's going to be. So just like with the color personalities, and you're usually a dominant one and one other one, or a dominant one and two other ones, you're usually most likely going to be a dominant tendency and lean towards another one.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. That's interesting. We got to continue to move on. We've had some people join us on the call. For those who don't know, we are actually talking about the 4 tendencies, which is called, what was it called again? What was the name of it? It was Gretchen Rubin's 4 tendencies. So there was a quiz that you could take that identifies what your, I don't want to say personality because that's not right, what your tendencies tend to lean towards. For those who didn't get a chance to hear, Dana and I came out as obligers, and Dana was able to briefly describe that. Thank you, Tashina. She's just posted a link to the quiz in the group text. So if you haven't taken the test, you can take that test. And Tashina was talking about the questioner. So there was 2 others. There was the rebel and the upholder, which Tashina was mentioned. Did anyone else on the call get a chance to take that test? And if so, what were your results? I'll give you guys about 30 seconds to chime in.
Hey guys, it's Karen. I didn't know whether or not I was on or not. No clues. This is kind of new to me. So I guess I'm an obliger.
Oh, welcome.
What? It's so funny because I totally thought it was going to be a rebel. Because most of the time, you can't tell me what to do and how to do it because I'm going to do it myself kind of thing. So it was really interesting to learn about myself and how I can, and not only just that, but then also communicating that with my my upline or my team members so that they can help motivate me and help me with my own tendencies, right? So an obliger, you're one that if somebody puts an expectation on you, you're more likely to do it than, and I'm sure you guys covered that earlier. Sorry if I wasn't here. So it was very interesting.
That's okay. Go ahead, because you're covering it from your perspective. So go ahead.
Right. So an obliger is like, if you put an expectation on me, I'm going to meet that. But for me to do it internally, to say, oh, I'm going to hit this goal, I ain't going to do it. So that's what I got out of it. And it was very interesting too, because then that way my team members know that if they put their expectation on me, I'm going to meet it. Right. So like for those that are helping me trying to meet my goal, I'm not setting my goal. I am, but by them putting an extra effort on me to meet my goal, I'm going to meet it. Right. Yeah. So that's kind of cool how that kind of came out. And it's kind of cool too in marriage. Right. So if anybody's in any relationship, whether it's just a marriage relationship or outside of that, learning what your spouse is too, so that you can help in that area. So it's not just all related to business. It's definitely related to relationships. So interesting enough, an obliger and an upholder are together. So I am not the upholder.
I felt like that was kind of funny.
Yeah. I think that if I could just add When you read the book, like, it'll make sense, and it'll, when you think about your personality, think about how your personality fits in that. Because definitely she says, people love to make things easy, and they were like, oh, this would be great if I could put it over the color personality, and this person is always this, or I could put it over Myers-Briggs, and this person is always this, but it never is that way. And that's how we try to think of it. We try to think, oh, blue must always be a rebel because they're the partiers, they're the this or whatever. But when you think about, like, your interaction with people, you're also a people person, right? You love people, and so you want to please people. And so you're probably an obliger that leans towards rebel. You're probably one that, like, wants to do things your own way. But because you're a people person and you love people, you want to meet outside expectations for the people that you love. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, we're running out of time. So we got to get into the rebel and we got to get into the upholder. It looks like our rebels are not on the call because they're rebels. No. So you want to talk about the upholders? We can talk about upholders next. So the upholders, they meet outside expectations and inner expectations.
I totally thought this was me when you were describing it, but I guess I was wrong. And my feelings were so hurt when I took the test, and I was like, I'm just like you.
No,
but
you probably lean to a different side, but
yeah,
you probably lean to a different side.
So my husband is the direct definition of an upholder.
Really?
He does what he should do because that's the right thing to do, and that's the law, like, it's what he should do, and he does it he has that internal discipline and ambition because that's what should be done.
Right.
So Dana, go ahead. Dana's actually got it in front of her. Go ahead and read what the upholder is.
Yeah, so I gave the example, upholders find it easy to keep New Year's resolutions or a deadline. They are rule followers and self-starters. While this makes them great employees and very reliable people, upholders can be more susceptible to stress and tend to box themselves in with rules and obligations. Yeah, so that's it.
Yeah, so my boss is also an upholder, and like he's been emailing like all weekend. We had a 3-day holiday weekend. He's been working this whole entire time. He is so straight-laced. He is like by the book, by the rules. And so one of their weaknesses is like if the things are not scheduled, they can just like fall apart. And so the best strategy for an upholder is to make sure there's a schedule. If you put it on their calendar, it's gonna happen.
Okay, that sounds good, and that makes sense. I don't want people to feel like if you're an upholder or a rebel, you're not getting as much time. But we are getting down to the tail end of the call. Thank you to Sheena for that information on that. Let's very briefly talk about the rebel. I'm going to do the best I can to explain this because I kind of thought I thought Dana was a rebel. I honestly did, but I couldn't have been more wrong. But rebels tend to resist all expectations, both outer and inner alike. Rebels do what they want, when they want, and avoid the things they don't want to do. Rebels reject when others ask them to do something and will often do the opposite. They are independent, out-of-the-box thinkers, but their resistance can be frustrating. So once again, I'm going to turn to our panel expert because she's a lot further along in the book. For the rebel, Tashina, what is the best way, I guess, for a rebel to make the best of that tendency?
So for the rebel, never tell them what to do. Never have a schedule because that's their weakness. So you have to make sure that they feel like it's their idea. So if they're a rebel that leans towards the questioner, you may actually have to use reverse psychology. You might have to be like, so you know what? I think that you should sit at home and watch TV all day. And if they're a rebel that leans towards the upholder, which means they have some outside standards, they do kind of want to help people, then you're going to be like, so here's what the situation is, here are the consequences, here are the options, and you step back. The second that you tell them, I need you to do this, I want you to do this, I expect you to do this, the world expects you to do this, they're not going to want to do it. So you have to let them feel like it's their idea. And the good thing about a rebel is, like, when they think it's their idea, they will run. They will run, they will meet it. They don't need structure. They don't need a schedule. They will just fight for what they want when they think it's their idea.
That actually partially sounds like maybe I lean towards a little bit of rebel. So I might be the obliger / rebel, which is funny because, like I said, I thought that's what Dana was, because
I think Dana's the obliger leaning towards the upholder, and you are the obliger leaning towards rebel.
I agree.
That would make, because I always feel like Dana does the complete opposite of like what I think she should do, but maybe it's just more of a reflection of me just actually leaning more towards the rebel side. So it's very interesting. Once again, what's the title of the book? Because you posted the link to the test. So I encourage everyone, if you haven't had an opportunity, take that test. It's going to help you to learn a lot more about yourself. But what's the name of the book where they can actually get more exposition on that?
The 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin.
Okay. Available on Amazon?
Yes. Or audiobook for download on Audible as well.
Okay. Very good. Well, we have hit our 9 o'clock marker. So we are at the end of the call. Before we close it out, any events that anyone wants to promote, or any questions, anything that they want to extend to the group or team members alike?
Well, I'll start. We have a class Friday evening, and then for our team, we're having some people over Sunday around 3 o'clock.
Make it sound fun and exciting. So the one on Sunday is actually a party that I've got my oils now what party. We're going to have food and drinks and association, and it's going to be oily and it's going to be fun. So for all our blues out there, like myself, if you guys want to have a good time, an oily good time, join us Sunday. So those are our 2 events that we have coming up this week. How about anyone else? Any other events you guys want to promote?
Julie and I will be in GoPro this upcoming weekend, so we are going to see Pitbull and Tony Robbins and Brendan Bouchard and a whole bunch of like amazing people. So we'll have some good notes from that when we come back. And then the following weekend, Small Business Saturday, I will be doing a vendor event in Dearborn.
Okay. Karen, anything that you want to promote while you're on?
Sure. We have a Intro to Oils class in Clarkston on this upcoming Wednesday at 6:30 at Bigsby. It's in Joslyn. It's off of Joslyn Road, Auburn Hills, Clarkston area. And then we'll be in vendor events in Brighton, Heartland, Milford, and Battle Creek. Yeah.
That sounds right.
Kellogg.
Sure.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. Anyway, so that's this Friday and Saturday. So the whole team will be working, going for it. So it's super exciting. And then there'll be some Heartland ones coming up because I know you guys have some team out in Heartland. We haven't yet nailed in on that date yet, but it'll probably be I don't know the exact date, but there'll be definitely something just before the holiday coming up, Thanksgiving, and then afterwards as well. So.
Okay.
And we'll be sure to get you guys those dates if you want to plug into them.
Yeah, if you could definitely post the link to the Clarkston one because we have plenty of people in Waterford and Pontiac. And then for December, if we could collaborate with one because, again, we definitely have some people that need to get to some classes. And Wednesdays don't particularly work for me. That's my worship night.
So I guess the purpose in having those promoted too is just people keep in mind that it's great to have a team that even if you can't get with someone, these events that are happening, you're more than welcome to send any of the people that you know that want more information. Send them to a class that lets somebody else teach it for you and just make sure they tell them who they were referred by, so that if they do sign up, you get the credit for it. But also take full advantage of it. That way that it's not always just on you, but there's always an opportunity or a class to take an opportunity of. So very good. So keep those dates in mind. We're going to keep everybody posted on any future events coming up. Tashina, thank you for all of your input on tonight's topic. Hopefully everyone found this useful. I know I certainly did, and I'm sure Dana did as well. And we thank you all for being on the call this evening, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right, bye guys.
Stay healthy, and we'll see you guys then.